I hold 271 patents. You know one of them. Let me read you the list, because I have come to think the list is the story. A hair-curling iron. That was the first, in 1866. An automatic sprinkler that would put out a fire and telephone the fire brigade while it did it. A locomotive headlight. A machine for making illuminating gas. A carbon filament for the electric lamp, which put me in a fight with Mr. Edison that I did not win. A mousetrap. A merry-go-round. An inhaler for bronchitis. A flying machine. And a gun. I intend to go through them in the order I made them, because that is the only honest way to explain how a farm boy from Maine ends up with his name on the object that emptied the fields of Europe. Nobody, hello, has bronchited you. I don't just go to the review to fight about the temper through an spokal on onomata. He is head her, mounset of enya placitive that the empolim aurea. Nobody sets out to do that. You solve the problem in front of you, and then the next one. One of them turns out to be different from all the others, in a way you do not discover until much later. Here is the list. Sangerville, Maine, 1840. My father was a farmer who was better with his hands than with the land, and I was apprenticed to a carriage maker at 14. I was very strong and very quick, and I did not like being told things I could work out myself. That is the whole of my character, and it explains everything that follows. The mousetrap came early. Our mill had rats, so I built a trap that reset itself and cleared the building. It worked. I have always been most pleased by the things that worked quietly. Then gas machines. Then the electric light. I developed a process for carbon filaments, and I lit the Equitable building in New York. And for a period in the early 1880s, a reasonable man might have told you that Maxim, not Edison, would be the name attached to electric lighting. I was sent to the Paris exhibition. Some say I was sent there to get me out of the way of the American electrical business. I have never been certain that is untrue. And that is how I came to be in Europe at all. In Vienna, I met an American I knew. He told me to give up electricity. He said, "If you want to make a lot of money, invent something that will enable these Europeans to cut each other's throats with greater facility." I want to be precise about this, because it is the hinge of my life and people quote it badly. It was not a command. It was a joke about a market. And it was correct. I had fired a rifle as a boy, and I remembered the kick. Every man who has fired one remembers the kick. It is waste, and I disliked waste more than I disliked anything. So I asked the only question I ever really ask. What if the waste did the work? Not a crank turned by a man. Not a team of loaders. The recoil of one shot, ejecting the case, feeding the next round and firing it. A single barrel, water-cooled, fed from a belt. One man, 600 rounds a minute. I built it in a rented workshop in Hatton Garden. It took me about a year. I demonstrated it in 1884. The gentleman came to watch. Royalty came. The Duke of Cambridge came. I cut down a tree with it, which is the demonstration everyone remembers. And I remember the applause, because I could still hear applause then. What I could not do was sell it to my own countrymen or to the British Army with any speed. Armies are conservative. It took a colonial war to make the case. 1893, Southern Africa. In one engagement, about 50 men, with 4 of my guns, held off several thousand matabele. The reports came back to London, and after that, nobody needed convincing. Then Omdurman, 1898. Roughly 11,000 dead on one side in about 5 hours, 48 on the other. My guns were not the only weapons on that field. They were the ones the poets wrote about. There is a couplet from the period. Whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun, and they have not. It was written as satire. It was not received as satire. Now the part of the list I actually cared about. Flight. From about 1889, I spent a fortune of my own money, something in the order of £20,000, on a flying machine at Baldwin's Park in Kent. It was enormous, 4,000 square feet of wing, 2 steam engines of my own design, extremely light for their power, which remains the finest engineering I ever did. It ran on a rail track with a second set of rails above it to hold it down, because I was not trying to fly, not yet. I was trying to measure lift. In 1894, it developed enough lift to tear itself off the restraining rail. It rose. It broke. It came down and it was wrecked, and I never rebuilt it. 9 years before, the brothers at Kitty Hawk, a machine I built, left the ground under its own power. It was uncontrollable, and I knew it, and I had no answer for that, and so it is a footnote, and they are not. I do not dispute the judgment. I only want it on the list. Last items. I suffered from bronchitis, so I built a menthol inhaler and I sold it. And for that, the medical establishment attacked me. They called it quackery. They said it was beneath the dignity of an engineer. Nobody had ever said anything of the kind about the gun. I wrote this down at the time, and I stand by it. From the foregoing, it will be seen that it is a very creditable thing to invent a killing machine, and nothing less than a disgrace to invent an apparatus to prevent human suffering. I became a British subject. I was knighted in 1901. I went deaf, progressively and then completely, from standing beside my own invention while it worked. I died in London in 1916, which was the middle of the war, and I would ask you to notice that I did not live to see the end of it. My son took the family aptitude and spent his career on silence. The firearm silencer, the automobile muffler, 271 patents, a curling iron, a sprinkler, a mousetrap, a filament, a flying machine, an inhaler for a cough. Which one did you know?